Your custom.
It's just reply to that.
Okay. Okay, we will go ahead and move into public comment. Did we do roll call? Okay, roll call.
Amanda Harness.
Here.
Sarah Moses.
Here.
Sarah McDavid.
Present.
Ariel Owens. Present. Jeremy Olson. Casey Ramirez. David Seymour.
Present.
Chance Fallon.
We good? Yeah. Sorry. Okay, next up is public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments of the from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. And first up we have Peter Vanderbilt, and the subject is COVID quarantine. Mr. Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Good evening, members of the board and community members and Dr. Garcia Sanchez. My name is Pete Vanderbilt. My wife and I are parents of 5 D428 students. A couple months ago, my 6th grade son, along with several others on the cross-country team, was quarantined for a supposed close contact with someone who had tested positive for COVID. I argued like mad to keep him in school where he belongs. In my conversation with a D428 middle school principal and the school nurse, I asked who's making all the decisions. Who's deciding whether to take away my child's right to an education? The suspension, I said, was unwelcome and I wanted to appeal it. Principal, who was polite, corrected me saying that it wasn't a suspension, but rather an exclusion from school. I said, you know, you're right. If it were a suspension, my son would get a hearing. When I asked her whom I should appeal to, who's deciding, she replied that it was the IDPH. The school, she admitted, is just following the rules so they don't have any liability. From D428 to the DeKalb County Health Department I went, and that's the line. We're just following the guidelines. Of course, the guidelines are unclear, illogical, always changing, and no one can defend them. But we follow. I don't blame district staff. Our district is intimidated. And board members, lots of your decision-making responsibility and your power to stick up for our kids have been stripped away, being replaced by mandates and pronouncements of, I'm looking at the numbers, I might have to shut things down, and so on. In the case of my son, several of us parents investigated on our own and found that the exposure was outdoors at a home cross-country meet. Our pleas to the health department were heard, and our boys were allowed back to school after 1 day of exclusion. If we hadn't pushed back, the 10 or so boys would have lost almost 100 days of their education. This shows how ridiculous quarantining is. Without due process, our kids are being put out of school for weeks at a time. One of the boys in that group was on his 4th quarantine. He never had COVID. We've got to get better at this. We have to make it a priority for healthy kids to be in school. It's time for this board and others across the state to start doing what parents did, pushing back. Maybe through the Illinois Association of School Boards. I know it's on our agenda tonight. Create a resolution that urges, demands the Governor Pritzker and the ISB let our communities decide how schools navigate through the rest of this so-called crisis. I read the entire ISBA
Thank you.
manual.
That's 3 minutes. I thank you for your comment.
Thank
The board
you.
appreciates it. And next up is Cindy Blanchard. Sorry, I had her time. And bus transportation and lack of district support.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Cindy Blanchard. I'm a parent of District 428. I've had 4 children in the school district since 2005. I'm a single parent now because I lost my husband in May of this year to COVID, okay? So I speak for you, okay? So I'm a single parent. and there has been nothing but bus transportation issues in this school since this school year started. I have had to travel my children to and from school every day for 8 weeks. I have to spend 3 hours a day taking my kids to and from school. I travel 5 times a day to these schools. You offer no assistance, the school district offers no assistance for any type of secondary or any kind of ways to litigate this issue. You offer no remote learning. Last year we had a hybrid option. So if I can't offer school bus transportation, when I live in Cortland and my kids have to travel to DeKalb High School and it's a 20-minute drive, you need to offer some type of remote learning. My kids already lost 1.5 years, 2 years of going through a normal school day. They should not have to have you transported every single day by me. That is the option of the school. Not only that, when you go to the high school, there is no security there. The principal sits at the front of the door, talking to the security guard. No presence. There is no, when you're at the school, there's nobody directing traffic. I'm waiting for a tragedy to happen at that school. Kids are walking across the street, cars are coming back and forth. You have, let's see, they announce usually the night before, you have no bus service. So you have, what, 60 kids in a school bus, times 10 buses not there? That's how many you have going to this school bus. So when are we gonna make a decision? Can you have the kids start at different intervals, different times, so you have less traffic coming through there? It takes 2 hours to get out of that high school in the evening, or the afternoon. Something has to be done. We can't just say, oh, I have 2,000 students, what do you want me to do? Okay? Obviously, the hands are tied with the administrators at the high school level. As a board, you need to understand, I now had to pass up a promotion in my job when I need to be able to provide for my children because I have the only income coming in. Because I have lost 3 hours of my work day every single day for 8 weeks straight now. I just feel like we need to do something. I'm not one to complain or to attend these meetings. Something has to be done. I actually worked as a school bus driver back in 2005, and I know that those working conditions are not doable in that situation. I know Brenda that runs that, the transportation, ran that transportation back in 2005. Maybe they need to look at what their working conditions are in the school.
I'm gonna stop you there, that's 3 minutes. I'm very sorry about your husband, and thank you for
No,
coming to
thank
make a
you.
comment tonight. Okay, next up is board committee reports and correspondence. Does anyone have any reports or correspondence?
I have an unofficial report.
Okay.
My son is a student at Clinton Rosette, and upon dropping his lunch off one day, I was able to speak with the vice principal, Nicole Stallings, and a local community organization, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, I'm a member of. We're going to do a community service event there, and getting hats, scarves, and gloves for children and students there. And we're going to do that next Thursday.
That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I have a couple of things. I spent, it was Tuesday, I went to observe RISE, and Mr. Premo and Ms. Springer were there, and that is our reading intervention framework that is very, it's small group and adults, and it's very intensive in terms of the ability to, for adults to interact with students at a high level, and kids were extremely engaged, and the early data is looking really good in terms of improvement in literacy, and it was very exciting to see, and it's an excellent program. So I just want to say shout out to elementary curriculum coordinators. Thank you for your work on that. It's really a great program, and it was great to see kids so engaged and enjoying themselves, and to everyone else that's involved with that. And then secondly, I wanted to share, you all should have in front of you the strategic planning focus group, second session, is that in here?
It's not an attachment.
Huh?
It's an attachment.
Is
On
it?
the agenda.
Oh, I'm just, sorry. I don't see it. Does anybody see it?
Yeah, it's under public comment, under the
Got it,
board.
okay, so under public comment is where, why am I not seeing that? No, I mean the actual attachment.
It's,
Is it on there, Jackie?
yeah,
Under board committee reports and correspondence.
Mhm.
it's right under, it's on.
Public content.
Scroll down.
I don't see it. Am I not?
What box is it in? Is it under public?
It's under B, it's the under public content.
She doesn't see this.
Sorry, everybody. Try again. Oh, here's behind. Oh, there it is. It wasn't there. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
So, this is essentially all the feedback from our strategic planning focus group that we held for the community to invite stakeholders, which would be community members, obviously parents, students, teachers, administrators, staff, and then obviously community members, elected officials, different organizations, all came to participate in the strategic planning focus groups. And so this is all part of developing our core values and our beliefs and our mission and our vision and updating those. So it was a good night. This was the second session that we had around this. The first one we did was around setting our goals for the district. And those have been done. And so, you know, as board members, we can look through all of these responses that we received back. And then what I was wanting to propose, I spoke with Laura Martinez today in terms of going ahead and finishing up our vision, mission, and values, is that we would just do a small group, you know, with a couple board members where we would go through and finish writing those things and then bring those back to the board, present them to the board for any changes that anyone would want to make or add, and then we could go ahead and refine those, finalize them, bring them back again for a final vote, if that works, versus doing a workshop with the entire board. And I talked with Laura. She said that she thought that it would be better for us to do more like a smaller committee to do that work, because it can get a little bit tedious if you've got 7 people trying to write one, you know.
So that's 2 people.
So it would be 2 of us doing that work. And we could choose who does that. There's a lot of, you know, groundwork that Daisy and I have done around it, so it doesn't necessarily have to be Daisy and I that finish it, but it can be. So I don't know if anybody's interested in, you know, taking any of that over, or if you would rather just have Daisy and I continue. I'm open to either option.
I'm interested if it helps take some, like, 3 days.
Oh, that's, sure, you know, we can talk about that, definitely. And then,
I would potentially be interested too. I don't know if you want to split it. Ari and I
We
could
could
work.
take over.
Yeah, we could
sure,
work on
sure.
other
Actually, like, it
subjects.
could be, yeah, we could do it that way. That's a great idea. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add, or? Okay. So we'll go ahead and move forward with that process, and then we can obviously include all of this stakeholder feedback, which is great. There's a lot of really good information. And if any of the public wants to see this, it's all attached in the agenda online, so you can pull that up if you want to see what the community results were for its core values and beliefs about students and learning, core values and beliefs about teachers and teaching, and then core values and beliefs about the relationship and responsibility of the district to the community and vice versa. So, okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Next is Subject C, Proclamation for Principals Week and Principals Day. And this is Dr. Garcia Sanchez, is that you?
No, I think it's you.
Is this me?
I can read it if you prefer.
That's okay, I can do it. So this is, whereas school principals play an integral role in the education, growth of children, in elementary, middle, and secondary schools across the state of Illinois. And whereas school principals are responsible for promoting education and building relationships with parents and teachers to ensure that each child receives services that allow them to excel in the classroom. And whereas it is the primary responsibility of the state of Illinois to preserve and improve resources for schools so that all students have access to a quality education and a foundation for a successful future. And whereas educational leaders face many challenges in supporting and educating our young people, and it is through their perseverance and passion that Illinois continues to produce quality, career-ready students. And whereas the Illinois Principal Association, which represents over 6,000 educational leaders statewide, believes that learning is a lifelong process and that the education of our children is the highest priority. And whereas during the 21-2022 school year, the Illinois Principals Association will celebrate 50 years dedicated to developing, supporting, and advocating innovative school leaders. And whereas school principals and learning leaders have faced unprecedented challenges relating to COVID-19 during the 2019-2020 and the 2020-21 school years, and work tirelessly to provide uninterrupted learning during an ongoing pandemic. And whereas we must continue to encourage, support, and recognize our school leaders who have a positive impact on Illinois students and the educational system in the land of Lincoln, therefore I, J.B. Pritzker, Governor of the state of Illinois, do hereby proclaim the week of October 24th through the 30th, 2021 as Principals Week, and Friday, October 29th, 2021 as Principals Day in Illinois, to recognize principals for all that they do to help our children learn and succeed. So, Principals Day is October 29th.
So the month of October, we began the month celebrating our school leaders, both principals and assistant principals. I supported a social media campaign to thank them and to ensure that they felt supported. And then today we wrapped up the month, since that was on Halloween, that was a Friday. We had principals on Tuesday and assistant principals today, where we once again thank them for their support and their service to the work that they do here. So we did celebrate them all month long. We continue to support them as they need in any of the work that they have done. So thank you very much to all of the school leaders that we have.
Mr. Horn, I see you here.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Yep, we appreciate you very much. And there's no one else here. Any principals or assistant principals? Wonderful. And next up is the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items A through H. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Samantha David?
Yes.
Sarah Moses?
Yes.
Ariel Owens? Yes. Jeremy Olson? Casey Ramirez? David Seymour?
Yes.
Amanda Harness?
Yes.
Next up is a new business subject is ISB Resolutions. And board members, if you can go ahead and grab this packet of IASB resolutions. These are the resolutions that we will be voting for at the III conference that we will be attending at the end of November, the weekend before Thanksgiving. This is a conference that I've attended, not last year, but the year before with the school board. And these are the resolutions that other school boards have put forth throughout the state of Illinois. And I'm the delegate that will vote for our district. So as we go through these resolutions, I will be charged with voting for each one based on any feedback that the board has. So we won't probably go through each one of these individually. However, I would look for feedback from all of you regarding these and what your thoughts are on the position that we would take regarding each one. If you have a specific one that you are having any concerns with, we can discuss that now. If you wanted to advocate for a position.
So we won't complete this before we go together, this checklist.
You want to, we can?
I guess I was asking for clarification. That's
Sure.
what you were proposing.
Well, I was proposing that that people could give me feedback after reading through it and let me know if there's anything that, anyone has a strong.
So if there's no feedback, would you just follow what the ISB recommendation is?
The recommendations, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll give you all, you can go ahead and look through and see what.
Can you just check in with us at the next meeting before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just discussion. Yeah, definitely, like read through and then we can go ahead and fill it out, prior to going. Cause I'll be voting on I think it's the 20th is when the vote takes place at III.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah. All right, next up is parent guardian transportation reimbursement for canceled bus routes. Ms. Cindy Carpenter?
So, obviously due to the bus driver shortages and how we had public comment here related to this, first student has had to cancel some bus routes, and we want to help to support parents with alternative transportation choices and providing them with the personal reimbursement for mileage based on how far they are away from school and how many students they have in their household as well. So we're going to want to set up a system where the parents can request that reimbursement request, and we would fund this through our emergency ESSER funds to help support those parents. And in the next few days, we're developing a system to do that, and then we would communicate that out to parents, how they can go ahead and go through that process so we can get this started for them. So I wanted to bring that to the board for their approval, to make sure that they're okay with that.
Okay. It is recommended the board, but any questions? Sorry.
No, I think this is one of the, it's kind of what we can do.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, it is recommended the Board of Education approve administration to establish a parent guardian mileage reimbursement process for canceled bus routes at a rate of 56 cents per mile as described above. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Amanda Hermes?
Yes.
Samantha David?
Yes.
Sarah Moses?
Yes.
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
Jeremy Olson? Lisa Ramirez? David Seymour?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is DeKalb High School dual credit welding. And this is Mr. Elliott and Ms. Montgomery.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for
Sarah
being here.
Montgomery, the secondary curriculum coordinator, Dave Elliott, industrial tech, and area coordinator for our CTE program, and of course, James Warren, our building principal.
Good evening. I just wanted to highlight a few areas on the presentation that you were given. To talk about our dual credit welding opportunity for our high school kids. We've been after this for quite some time, and it's great that it's finally coming to fruition. Dual credit welding is a mirror image of, and will run parallel with, our Materials and Fabrication 2 class, which is a metalworking class offered second semester at the high school. And interestingly enough, when I started the program some 16 years ago, the classes that we offer at the high school now were modeled after what's currently being offered at Kish. So all we really had to do was make some adjustments based on the changes that the welding instructors had made out at Kish College, which were minimal. They put some emphasis on some different areas, so we had to change some things around for us. Primarily, we had to make some spatial changes so we could increase some equipment space so the students could operate. So from that perspective, it fit very nicely. From a rationale standpoint, it really offers our kids additional opportunities. It saves them some money if they go out to Kish. It gives them elective credit out there if they're going into the automotive or diesel programs. It helps them there, as well as the manufacturing program, and obviously the welding program. I have quite a few students that show a lot of interest in going out to Kish. They have a great welding program. Zach Koshka runs the program out there. I'm on the welding board. He does a fantastic job with those kids and offers them a tremendous opportunity from a career standpoint. And the same is true with their diesel program and their automotive programs. So it really makes sense for us to be able to offer that. As far as additional expenses, we had to invest in some equipment. We spent about $1,500 out of our budget last year in preparation for this to increase the emphasis in some of the areas that we differed from what Kish offered. The students already pay a consumables fee of $45, which covers the gases they use, the steel they use, and other consumable items that we provide for them in the class. Unlike Kish, students who go there have to bring their own equipment, their own helmets, their own PPE, and other pieces of equipment, tools, whereas at the high school we supply all that, so they don't have to bring anything. Other expenses, we had to buy a set of books, a classroom set of books that are the equivalent to what Kish uses out there for their programs, but generally that was really it. So from an investment standpoint, it really made great sense for us to go ahead and get this done, and we got a lot of support from administration and from our curriculum council, and hopefully from you guys. That's it. That's all we got.
Anyone have questions?
No, I love when we can expand into college and career, so,
Absolutely.
options for students.
Thank you, we're very excited. Thank you, Dave, for all your work.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much for bringing this to us. I think it's excellent. Like Sam said, anytime we can do that is a very positive thing for students. So, as consensus to bring this item back for a vote?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Next up is Student Council Winter Retreat Overnight Trip for qualifying members. Mr. James Horn.
Hey, good evening. So historically what happens every winter is our student council attends a trip and a workshop with student council to do some training, some team building. It's in the city of Chicago. In addition to this workshop, there's also several cultural opportunities for our students, to everything from museums to shows that they participate in. This event's not happening this year. However, our council is still asking to go, for two reasons. The first being the cultural components they get in the city of Chicago, but second, and probably most importantly, is the team building. Over COVID and with the shutdown, many of the leadership within student council has graduated. So in a lot of ways, student council is starting from the scratch, and it's the opportunity for our sponsors to work with the current leadership board. Because our seniors have not had the luxury of learning from the other seniors the way they normally would have. So for this reason, we're asking for permission to take an overnight trip into the city of Chicago for this reason.
Are there any questions?
Yes, how many students are there?
I can get the exact number for you if it's not in the documentation. 15 is in my mind, but I'm not going to be certain on that. I'd rather give you factual information.
Oh, it does
There'll
say
be
10.
10 students and 2 adults.
I missed it too. It's
Yeah.
like the last little sentence in that.
I believe because it's 13 on the
There it
minibus,
is.
and I believe we're taking one minibus, so it'd be 15 because there's a sponsor and a co-sponsor, so it'd be 15.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the value of team building because thanks to Dr. Garcia Sanchez, we had a lot of fun doing team building activities this
Yeah.
summer, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I would definitely, I think this is a great thing. I hope that we all vote to support this. So are there any other questions or comments?
So is it action tonight?
It's action, it's
Okay.
information action. Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and bring it up for a vote. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the DHS Student Council to travel to Chicago, Illinois to stay at the Hyatt Hotel and participate in team building bonding activities on December 4th through 5th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Aria Owens.
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Daisy Ramirez, David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Samantha David.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Next up is the DeKalb Classroom Teachers Association Student Support Allocation, Ms. Cindy Carpenter.
So due to COVID-19 and additional supports and resources needed to help students, administration is recommending a student support allocation of $1,000 each for each DCTM member for the purpose of purchasing additional supports and assist with student instruction. We're going to start a process that will be established where each DCTM member can request this $1,000 and give us some rationale as to what they're going to use those funds for. And since these are federal emergency funds we'll be using, we need to show that the focus is on prevention, the preparation, and the response to COVID-19. So they will qualify for ESSER funding. The requests are going to be reviewed and approved by administration, and then the DCTA can go ahead and follow the same process that we would use for any purchasing here in the district. So either doing a purchase order or using a P card or that type of thing. And then, again, we have about 581 DCTA members, so that's $581,000 that we would allocate from our ESSER funds to support these purchases. And so we're hoping to get the approval from the board to start that process.
Are there questions? Comments? I'm pleased that we're doing this. I think this is a really important thing to do, to support teachers, to support their students in the classrooms with materials and anything that they can, do in addition to support the recovery from COVID and the ramifications of it. So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve a student support allocation of $1,000 for each DCTA member for the purpose of purchasing additional supports for students and assist with student instruction. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Casey Ramirez, David Seymour.
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Next up is staffing request. This is an increase for a 4-hour cook at DHS and to a 5-hour cook. Ms. Salas?
Currently, the pizza cook at the high school is a 4-hour job, labor grade 1. It is being requested that we increase that to 5 hours, and that's due to higher production needs and ability to prepare and clean up daily.
Okay, any questions on this? So this is a 1-hour increase from 4 hours a day to 5 hours a day. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the increase of a DHS pizza cook from 4 hours a day to 5 hours a day. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Jeremy Olson, Casey Ramirez, David Seymour.
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens.
Yes.
Next up is staffing request, an additional 1.0 FTE 5th grade bilingual teacher. This is Ms. Dietrich and Kemp.
Due to an increase in enrollment, there is a need to increase the 5th grade bilingual classroom for this current school year. Per the 23rd School Admin Code 22B, bilingual classes are supposed to be at 90% of the size of general education classes, about 25 students. Currently, we are over that number on enrollment. With the addition of this classroom, the request is to add a classroom at Founders, because this is the only building that currently has one story. So we're requesting the addition of a classroom.
Any questions or comments? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Casey Ramirez, David Seymour.
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Okay, next up is Ms. Salas, staffing request DHS special education 1.0.
Again, based on the Illinois State Administrative Code, section 226.730, the district must maintain a class size in a self-contained special education classroom of 8 students. However, we may increase the class by 5 when we include an additional assistant. At DeKalb High School, multiple classes of self-contained special education classes are slightly above capacity. DHS administration, in collaboration with student services and HR, evaluated this possibility of reallocating resources to reduce the class size. However, it was determined that adding a full-time special education teacher was necessary. So we are asking for the addition of a special education teacher for the needs of our special education students.
Any questions or comments? And this is not ESSER funding related, this is just, okay. It is recommended the Board of Education approve an additional 1.0 special education teacher FTE at DeKalb High School to meet the growing demand in our self-contained classrooms. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez.
Next up is staffing request, contracted school psychologist. Seth?
We continue to be short one school psychologist. We continue to advertise this position and have not been able to fill it. We've also reached out to staffing agencies, and now one has been able to identify an individual. They have presented a contract, and we will be able to fill that position for the remainder of the school year. And this request is for you to approve the contract so that we would be able to fill our last opening of a school psychologist.
Okay, so the FT on this has already been approved, but
Yes.
this
Yes,
is to
the
approve the
FT
contract.
is approved, but we
Okay.
have not been able to fill it.
Okay. So are there any questions other than that? Okay, roll call, or sorry, motion?
So move.
Second.
Roll call?
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez, David Seymour.
Yes.
Next up is staffing request, annually employed substitute at the ELDC.
The ELDC in the past has not had an allocation for an annually employed sub. But this position works every day that there's student attendance, and it supports coverage in the building. Based on staff absences and the need for additional supports, the ELDC has requested the addition of the annually employed sub. Annually employed subs, again, work the same days of student attendance, and they are paid a rate of $140 per day, and they receive 4 personal days that will be prorated based upon hire.
Are there any questions or comments? Motion?
I'm sorry, may I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
How many staff are in ELDC that this sub would potentially cover? About?
You have to know how, it would be for both the teaching
EC
staff
and-
and the support staff.
Okay. So it's, okay.
Yeah, we can get that to you, but we don't have that right
Okay.
now.
I'm just wondering.
When I visited the ELDC, that was something that, Dee Dee had shared with me, is that she consistently gets pulled in the classroom, so it's really hard for her to do the work that she needs to do, supporting staff and teachers and just, being the director, so it's definitely necessary. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez, David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Staffing request, primary language tutor, Spanish for DHS.
Yes. Based on student need, there are 3 newcomer students that are in need of support in the Spanish language. To support, this request is to support student acclimation and student achievement. The request is to add a primary language tutor to help them to become more familiar with the English language, but to also provide translation support.
Any questions or comments?
I see that there's just $12 an hour. About how many hours are we thinking are needed?
It's based on student need, so if the student needed them for just during the time they're in class, or if they had additional support needs outside of the class, so it could vary. Do you know anything specific? They really need to get in and assess the students to better understand understand what their needs are to be able to make that determination.
Any other questions? Okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the request for the position of primary language tutor at DHS. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez, David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Hermes,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Next up is differential increase for DHS senior class advisor.
This letter of agreement was brought forward by the differential committee. Currently, the senior class advisor differential is less than the junior class advisor. The senior class advisor's biggest responsibility is graduation, which every year grows and has changed over the last few years because of our effects of COVID. So we are requesting that the senior class differential be equivalent to the junior class differential advisor, excuse me.
Are there any comments or questions? It is recommended the Board of Education approve the attached letter of agreement regarding increasing the senior class advisor differential factor. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Roll call?
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez, David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Hermes,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes. Next up is a letter of agreement with DCTA, Article 8.2, Section 4, parent-teacher conferences for two-way dual language kindergarten.
You may recall that the same letter of agreement came forward last year to support our two-way dual language teachers with student conferences. Those classrooms have both an English teacher and a Spanish teacher, and when they meet for parent-teacher conference, they need to collaborate to do so, so they're asking for additional time through this letter of agreement.
Are there any questions, comments? It is recommended the Board of Education approve the letter of agreement as attached. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Jeremy Olson, Stacy Ramirez, David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Hermes,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens.
Yes.
Next up is, thank you, Deetra.
Thank you.
Next up is Aramark Food Service contract extension request for fiscal year 22-23. Ms. Cindy Carpenter?
We're already talking next school year. So, we've been with Aramark Food Service, we're in the 5th year of our contract, and because we're in the Federal Child Nutrition Program, every 5 years, we're required to go out to bid, the full bid process, and for another food service vendor. Because of COVID, the state is offering us a 1-year extension because it's difficult right now to go out to bid. It's very difficult to price things now just because of the food costs and just everything related to the difficulties we're having and supply issues, those types of things. So we have an opportunity to ask for this extension, and we have to do that by December 15th. So I'm bringing this to the board for their consideration today, and then for subsequent potential approval at our next meeting, so we can be well ahead of this and then just get this extension going. We would be able to extend our contract based on current terms, which right now the terms are either CPI or 2%, whatever the cap is. So, and Aramark is willing to stay with those prices as well, which honestly I feel is pretty fair under the circumstances. So I'm recommending that we do extend for another year before we have to go out to a full bid.
Okay, any comments or questions about this?
Just a comment, I heard on the radio this morning when I was going into work that, I don't know where the school district was, but their food service canceled their contract on them because they don't know where to get the food and the items that they need. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and yeah, they actually, when we just found out about these extensions, were like 2 weeks ago, or maybe even a week ago, and right away they're on the phone with me asking if we wanted to extend, which is good news, because I was a little, wondering if that could be a similar situation, and obviously that would be tough in order to not have a contractor for the food service. Yeah. Tough times.
questions or comments?
I'll bring it back for consideration next meeting.
Sure, sounds good, thank you.
you.
Next up is review draft of the 2022-2023 district calendar. Dr. Garcia Sanchez.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So just to keep up with Cindy, we're talking about next year already. So we have been working with the calendar committee led by DCTA membership and have met with DCTA leadership to discuss the calendar for next year. Approximately, the calendar looks very similar to this school year, starting in the middle of August, and then finishing the year at the end of Memorial Day, which is the Friday right before Memorial Day, so we would be able to finish, adding on the emergency days as needed at the end of the calendar year. The differences or the nuances that we have new this time around is that the winter break will be 2 full weeks, Monday through Friday, instead of the middle of the year. So it would have consistency for everyone. That went over fairly well with the unions, and we'll be working with the other union leadership to ensure that it makes sense as well. And then the other piece is around the PLCs. This year, as you know, PLCs were occurring every Thursday as early release. We heard back from community, we heard back from teachers, and then we ourselves realized that perhaps garnering a once a month half day for PLCs might behoove us to be able to complete professional development and support resources for our staff so that they have an opportunity during their collaborative half day and our PLC to converge on the work that makes sense as we're developing the cycle of continuous improvement. So we have not, we met yesterday and we have not finalized the dates. We know we have the dates listed in the calendar, as you can see them, but we're still trying to figure out what makes sense for the high school, if it makes sense for the middle school, and then for the elementary school, so that it's fair. And then, as we know, ELBC has their Friday meetings, IEP meetings, and so we want to make sure that it also is conducive for their schedule. So, generally speaking, we have the calendar ready for review. We'd like for you to review it, and then we'd like to continue the conversation with union to ensure that the half day has, number one, the number of appropriate minutes, that we have had an opportunity to speak to all of our members that would be a part of that, and then finally just making sure that it's consistent for everyone. So I'd like to bring this back for next meeting for a vote.
May I ask a couple questions?
Of course.
So you're proposing to move those half days to Fridays instead of Thursdays?
Mm-hmm.
And then, does a monthly PLC meeting, even though it's longer, does it, from my limited understanding of PLCs, does that support the cadence of meetings that you need to have to do PLC work?
So from what we've gathered, and I know there's a number of folks here that would be able to answer probably more detail. So an hour, by the time folks get into the room, get ready to do the work, you know, and we're getting set and really getting involved, it's almost time for us to go, right? So that's one piece. The other piece is if we're doing professional development and then allowing them to look at data, it gives them a little bit more support to be able to be together a little longer so that we can really model what that looks like, and then help them to decide what collaboration needs to happen when they meet. The time between each one of those sessions also supports their ability to have safe practice and have true and really collect data for what that practice looks like.
Okay.
Right now in between, we really don't have that kind of time. We'd have to spend a couple of extra days to get through the professional development and the support process before they can actually get to the piece that we want them to get to.
So in this model, part of the PLC time allocated would be used for professional development around PLCs, or just whatever is needed?
So the interest is that in order to learn how to do a PLC, you should practice what that looks like, so you're actually learning how to do one by doing one.
Okay.
And in this case, it would be by looking at the data and problem solving for a particular issue.
Okay.
Whether preferably instructional, and then allowing for the collab day possibly to actually collaborate with peers around what that might look like.
Oh, okay, I understand.
So we're hoping that if everything works out, the collaboration would occur between the teachers, the union, and then us to kind of converge that so that it makes sense.
Okay, and it looks like some of them have been chosen somewhat strategically to pick up a longer break for families so that it makes sense.
So it makes sense, absolutely.
Is there any concern with having it on a Friday that we're just gonna see more people taking off and not even coming to school for the half day?
Yeah, so I know that was part of the pushback and part of the conversation for us to continue. But yes, the
Yeah.
answer is yes.
Okay.
There is that, and so we are still that's still part of the conversation we're having. Long story, long answer.
Yeah.
Do you know, I don't know that we've ever done them on Fridays. Is there any historical evidence to say that is the case, or, I mean, we can just try it and see, right? That's what you're
I
proposing.
think, and that's exactly one of the responses we had yesterday with DCTA leadership, was that we can try it, see how it works, and if it doesn't function, we can always switch it. What we're trying to prevent is making sure that our families, our parents,
Still,
yeah, so that there's a consistency and that they don't feel like every, once a week they have to try to figure something out. So we're trying to balance both of those things.
And I think I kind of like it as a parent.
Yeah. So I'd like to bring it back for consensus, or question, actually.
Does anyone else have questions? Okay, consensus to bring this back, and so we would bring this back next time for a vote or for more information, because it's still being worked out.
So just for clarity, when do I have to have it? I can't think of the date.
Oh, yeah, there's a date.
Yeah, we have a date that we need to be able to get to the ROE. Anybody? I can't remember what that is.
But I know we've typically done it, before the winter break.
Before the winter break, yeah. So I don't have an exact date, but I'll have that for sure.
So, okay, so next time we bring it back, you'll probably have more information to share with us about, it wouldn't be for a vote.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll need to give more information.
Okay, so yes, consensus to bring this back with more information to share about it.
Yes.
Yes. Verbals, you guys, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is Superintendent's Report.
Yes.
Good.
Good. So it's me again. So we have a few things to update you all on. Number one is that, as you know, under Improvement and Innovation, under Phil Eam's directorship, we have a family and community engagement position that has just recently been vacated by, I'm sorry, no, you can't hear me. So is that better? Under the leadership of Phil Eam as a director of Improvement and Innovation, we have a position that's entitled Family and Community Engagement. We had that, we are currently at a vacancy. It's just recently been vacated by Valerie Peña Hernandez, and it is currently under discussion about what the next steps are, and so we will inform a little bit more around what that would look like. Her last day was actually yesterday, so she's left us, and Phil is taking on the work that we need to do with support from all of us at Cabinet. We do have a consultant that we're working with that will continue to support us as we fill that position or decide to see what the next moves are. We currently also have, Val was able to complete a communication plan, so we will continue to use that to guide us to push out information and to continue to improve communications. So that's been posted for you to review and is available for all of you to take a look at. PLC, so funny, right? We need to be able to give you an update on what those look like. Billy, are you here to support me on what the changes are, if you don't mind? And Sarah, are the two of you going to share briefly what the changes are for PLC? For everyone, please.
Sure. So for elementary, as many of you know, it's our first year implementing it this school year. They changed a little bit from our original plan. They're focused on our strategic plan, the future states in our strategic plan. Our first cycle focused on balanced literacy, so we provided our staff with balanced literacy professional learning, and then we gave them the opportunity to collaborate with one another and work on getting where they needed to get for word study and phonics within elementary. And then our second cycle was going to be math talks, which started last week. So we've been looking at the feedback that our staff has been providing us, and they really are asking for SEL support. So today we had our first SEL PLC, and next week we're going to have an additional one. And the week after we actually have parent-teacher conference prep for our teachers, and then we'll have a math talk, and then we'll have another SEL. And to end winter break, we are going to have our building principals lead those, because we feel, we're all going through a tough time, and they need some time to be able to have that climate and culture opportunity within their building. So we want to make sure that they send out their staff for winter break in a good spot. So that's what I have for elementary.
Thank you. And to piggyback off of elementary for secondary, this is our second year implementing the PLCs. And PLCs, for those that may not know, are for professional learning communities. That's what the PLC stands for. And it is a model where teachers use the 4 essential questions to go through cycles to support students through their learning, curriculum development, and assessment analysis. So the first year, the middle school spent much time looking at aligning their curriculum to the essential standards, identifying the common success criteria. So as teams, when they meet together, they have an agreed upon framework for what the standards level of rigor, depth of knowledge, and what the various levels of proficiency and mastery are for each standard. And at high school, they were doing similar as a response to COVID. What are those essential standards? Paring things down, making sure that assessments are aligned. And then this year, when we stepped into this year, similar to what Billy had described, making sure that we are aligning the criteria that the district would like to have professional development that aligns to the strategic plan. So we have already started cycles for literacy at the middle school for both the language arts teachers and the science and social studies teachers, because there are specific literacy standards for those content areas. And then also we have kicked off the number talks at the secondary level, middle school first, and I just did the introductory one for the high school. It went very well. And then we are taking a little bit of a break to make sure that we're being responsive to those SEL needs in the classroom. Thank you to Kyle and his team for leading that today and the subsequent sessions. So far the feedback has been very positive about that. So we appreciate that hard work in the short amount of time. And then continuing those professional development cycles into the second semester.
Thank you.
Does anybody have questions?
No?
Yeah, I had a question, just kind of relating back to your comment, Billy, about teachers' need for SEL right now, considering everything that we're dealing with as a district and as a state and as a nation with COVID. Is it, and I know, like, I'm seeing this math talks on here, just asking the question about, because I know we introduced a new curriculum at the elementary level, the Envision, and then doing math talks, and I'm just, I'm wondering, is there even a higher need for SEL for teachers now to help, with students in the classroom? Is that more of a priority for us at this point? I guess what are your feedback or thoughts?
Yeah, so we advocated for the teachers to be able to have that SEL. I know right now you all have the strategic plan, and that's a high priority right now to meet the future states in that. So we did actually go and ask to be able to provide more SEL. So it was like a compromise to be able to provide the SEL and make a little bit of a shift.
So Kyle is actually leading that work. We're doing it district-wide. Kyle, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and we've started to talk about how we can moving forward into second semester, knowing that we have, our PLC time is needed for the academic, side of the house, I guess, and then how do we create opportunities for both? One of the things that our SEL committee is gonna do is put together a plan to provide professional learning during second semester. Nothing's finalized yet, but we're talking about ways that we can either record modules and make them available to staff to watch on their own time, or potentially offer some things after school. One of the pieces that we got a lot of good feedback about today's session is that there was some content presented, but then there was a lot of time for those building teams to discuss that together and to kind of share ideas of how they've supported students that have exhibited, different levels of crisis. So we're going to look to try and create that as much as we can. So it might not necessarily take place during the PLC time, but we're trying to figure out other ways that we can deliver that content, because I agree it's really important.
Okay.
Can I add to my comments as well?
Sure, absolutely.
And I think, looking at the strategic plan, if the school board says that your priority is SEL to provide those needs for our teachers and for our students and for our families, then we can make the shift that we need to make as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, I would say that I would think that probably everybody would agree, and I won't speak for everybody, but that right now addressing social and emotional needs, addressing Maslow before we can get to Bloom is, where we're at, and I don't know, but I would imagine that that's in alignment with, the plan that the board has set forth. I don't know.
So I want Phil to kind of tie it all together for us.
Yeah,
Sure.
In terms of the strategic plan is a living document, and it's also flexible, so we can be responsive to the needs that surfaced by teachers
Sure.
Throughout the district. As the need for SEL was surfaced, there is a place in the strategic plan for us to insert the SEL strategies that are going to be put forth by Kyle's department. So it will be part of the strategic plan. It will be a priority. Just it needs to be updated as soon as the details are developed.
Sure. Okay, because we've got, we're hearing a lot about, just students in crisis, and as I visit schools, that's probably the number one thing that I'm hearing from, administrators, teachers, staff, is that, children have a lot of SEL need, a lot of needs right now, and it's hard to get to math if we can't, address those types of needs first. So, and that all comes back to even just safety in our schools too. So just making sure that children's needs are met in that aspect, so that we can get to learning. So I don't know if anybody else has thoughts or comments on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So we're going to stick with the vein on the next year. We're getting ready to do prepare for registration and enrollment for the next school year. I'm going to ask Jackie Pringle to step up to present to the board what we're thinking for next year.
So I did touch base with Kim a little bit, since she's kind of over that. A couple things are gonna change, or hopefully change, is we have deadlines for, it really affects overflow, how at the elementary level is, everyone knows how elementary overflow works. And so we've talked about having a couple of nights of registration. So whether it's district or just building levels, do registration for returning students only, since new students have to come here to see Michelle for residency. Then we also are thinking, some staff members have requested that, previously, some of you may know that staff members could have their children attend the school that they worked at. And then a while ago that was stopped and it wasn't. So Minerva is thinking that potentially bringing that back, where students can attend the school that their parents are employed at. But that would come after there's deadlines where overflow students have the right to request to go back to their home school, and then new students kind of fill spots. So there would be a deadline, and then those requests would be approved through the superintendent's office.
So research shows that staff that has children in the building with them, their own children, tend to be happier, more comfortable being able to bring them. and take greater pride in the building that they currently work in because their children are there. They'll be more supportive, they'll stay later, they'll start earlier, so I'm not trying to overwork anybody, but there's gonna be a lot more happy individuals knowing that this is something that's available. So this isn't just for the teachers, it's for all staff members. We're opening it up to everyone so that they have an opportunity to feel more comfortable about having their children in the same place that they are. Of course, there will be some parameters that we need to consider, but we'll make sure that we're talking to the principals about what, the school leaders about what that might look like.
Can I say it back to you to make sure I understand what you said? So, first you're inviting children whose home school it is to register at different events. And I can say Tyler had a registration event last year where they gave pizzas out, and it was, I went with my kids and it was wonderful. It was even drive-through, but anyways, besides that. So they would register during this period, and then after that, and that would include students that were previously overflowed. They would have the opportunity to register in their home school during those.
If they register by the deadline, that will be.
By those, right, within those
And then there
days.
is- And then if there is room.
If there's
Correct.
room. And then after that, staff can request their children to come.
New students also will be registering at that same time.
Oh.
So usually new students then place in two because that would be their home school. So after those deadlines,
Then staff, okay.
Will have a deadline that they then have to submit, for that request.
Okay. And potentially there could be some that don't have slots then.
Correct.
And they would, okay. And how does transportation work?
They would transfer them.
It would just be
The
with
parent would
them.
have to transfer this, so there would be no transportation provided for you.
If they're going with their
parent
parent.
to work.
I think that's really great that we're opening it up potentially to not just DCTA, but also teaching assistants, it sounds like, office professionals.
Yes.
Across the board.
That's great.
And is that a student that would reside in this community, just going to a different school within our community?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay. So, next up is, we're planting trees. Oh, somebody's planting trees on our behalf, and I'm gonna let Tammy talk to us about that. Tammy.
We work with a company called Nania Energy as we put our bid spec together for the energy bid this past year, 2 years ago. Okay, it was last year. 2 months ago, it feels like a lot longer. And they contacted us that, based on our relationship, they planted a number of trees on our behalf as a thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We're going green.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Tammy. The next thing here is, so next meeting, November 16th, instead of a usual update or superintendent's report, the cabinet and myself will be doing a state of the district that will be inclusive of where we are with our KPIs as well as with data across the district and what next steps we will have in relation to what we're doing. So you'll hear from all of us in regards to that. The other piece of that is that I wanted to mention, I think this is loaded on there, I believe. There's a copy of all the committees that are currently run in the district. There's a few that are highlighted in gray, which means that they're not currently running, but the rest are. I just wanted to make sure that a couple of things are set. One is that the strategic plan is something that is being collaborated on by not just center staff, but the committees actually lead the work, and that there are a number of teachers on these committees, and so I'm very grateful that it really is a collaborative process, and it didn't appear that people understood that. So during our next meeting, when I'm presenting the state of the district, we'll make this more visible so that everybody knows that we're trying to be as collaborative and transparent with all of our unions to make sure that we're doing things appropriately and that the work does line up to our strategic plan. The other thing that I think that was what I wanted to say. All right, so then the last thing is that I just wanted to give an update. I was participating in a panel this weekend, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and the panel was around SEL and mental health. I think that, you know, part of what I've learned from that in making contacts with other people is the work that is really gonna come out to fruition for adults. So one of the things that came out very evident is that people, we always say something like self-care, right? And so even right now that I said it, I saw eye rolls and things like that. And people don't understand what self-care is. And to wish somebody say, make sure you take care of yourself, it's like, okay, so we're saying that, it's like lip service, but what does the rest of it mean, right? And we are trying to be very intentional about making sure that we understand what's gonna make people happy, why people want to come to work, what it is that we can do to support them to be able to do that. So we'll be sending out a survey through Kyle's team on what that might look like. And I really ask that every member complete that survey so that we understand how we can support what it is that you need to be a healthy, collaborative, happy employee of the district. Now, 100%, I get it, we're not gonna get there, but the more we know to be able to help you, the easier that it could be to be able to support you where you need that to be. So I really appreciate you doing that. I was also asked, this is the final thing, to by Forefront Equity and Education Group, which is part of the McCormick Foundation and Grand Victoria Foundation, to be a panelist, not going anywhere, it's local, it's gonna be virtual, and to really talk about what we need to do to be able to help our students, right? So our marginalized students, our students of color, all of our students, I think what's good for one is good for everybody else. And so we wanna make sure that we are a part of this conversation. McCormick Foundation tends to share some money around SEL work, and so I'd like to be able to convince them that DeKalb is the place to bring their funding and their resources to support us in the work that we're already developing, and the work that Kyle and everybody else is working around for the strategic plan is really the foundation for that. So I just want you all to know that, even if I'm out there doing those things, there's always a connection back to how we're gonna bring something for the district. I don't go out there just to go out there, but I always wanna bring something back. So this particular one is not till April 1st. And it'll be, like as I mentioned, I'll be a part of the panel, and it will be a virtual experience. So that's it for me.
Questions? There's one more thing on
I
here
did miss something?
about a security consultant.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so Cabinet and I, we're hearing, all of these issues. Some of those that were brought up to us today, they've been brought up to us before. So we've been checking out entry and dismissal, lunch periods, recess periods, going out to visit. We came back and we had a number of conversations. So what we're thinking is that there are a number of issues that are gaps in relation to safety across the district, and we would like the board to consider right now, and I'd like to bring back at our next meeting the opportunity to have a consultant do an audit for us around what those gaps look like, so that we can be more focused or think about how we can make improvements. I can give some examples if that'll help you better understand why we're looking at them, except that I think others have seen them and we can probably relate. I'm gonna ask Tammy to jump in here if there's something that would help us to better understand what the request is.
Over the years, and not this year isn't unique in that there are safety concerns that are identified in our district. We haven't had a designated director of safety and security since 2009 in the district. It's just been responsibilities that have been kind of absorbed into other positions. And a district our size, there are areas that we should be putting more attention to, that just time does not allow for it. And as the student safety issues continue to increase and bring concern, we just feel that it's the time to bring an outside agency clearly identify where those gaps are and to suggest ways to improve on those that we can then actively pursue in regards to what those solutions are to provide a better, safer environment for our students, our staff, our community, and move forward with those suggestions with approval from the board.
Thank you, Tammy.
Is that something we'll have to go out to bid for? Do you have any kind of idea of what it involves or like timeline or cost or anything?
We haven't explored all of that fully at this point because it's really been a discussion that's come up pretty heavily in the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be exploring it in more detail. It would be, we would probably be looking to do an RFP versus a bid because it is more of a professional services relationship. Through our sources of different committees and groups that Ben, myself, and others have been involved with, we have some options that we can easily pursue so we can get some thorough bids or thorough quotes, I should say, or proposals, so we can really take a look and see what the best bid is for the school district.
And then if like you said, we haven't had what was the position previously?
Originally, it was Director of Safety and Security, but the position was eliminated in '09.
It seems like this is maybe something we should do on a reoccurring basis. I don't know how often you would normally do it, but just to keep it up to date.
And it is something that please understand, we are not saying that this is anything that has been ignored by any stretch, but
Right.
it just needs some better attention and more directed attention. It's trying to identify where our priorities need to be focused, and does that involve something that can be handled by people that currently work in the district or not? And an outside set of eyes we feel is the best solution at this time. And they may have some suggestions, Samantha, for us to do this on a specific basis from moving from here on out.
So, and I believe, like Sarah brought up earlier, kids, if they don't feel safe and secure where they are, then they
Right.
can't focus on the work, which is part of the problem that we may be having some of these SEL issues, right? I believe, and so, and research says that if kids feel safe, they feel like they belong, then likelihood is that balance will be more appropriate.
Did this come out of safety committee or was this?
No, it hasn't recently. Over the years, we have brought up it a number of times in discussions about bringing this position back as a full-time position in the district. But again, based on other demands throughout the district, it just hasn't come to the top. But we felt this time, again, an outside set of eyes, giving us a real perspective of what we are doing well, what things we could do better, and again, improving that safety for our students and staff has to be a priority at all times. But right now, with so many things going on in the school district and community, it's time to pursue this more heavily.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, thank you for all the updates.
Thank you.
And with that, we will go ahead and motion to adjourn. Do it.
Everybody back to closed session.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll adjourn, I guess. What do we do, go back into closed session? Do you do that? So how do I do that? Yeah, I think
You
we'll just-
adjourn to closed session.
We'll adjourn to closed session. So if you're all dismissed.
I think we still have
There's
to.
a motion
We have to
though.
close
Yes,
the
we
open
still have
session.
to motion.
So there's a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
All in favor, roll call.
Yes.